The rain had been relentless all night, pounding against the windows and leaking in little rivulets down the walls of my cramped, dimly lit apartment. I had only been in the coastal town of Dunlow for 3 days, and already it felt like years. The air was thick with salt and rot, the streets always damp, and the people, well, they didn't exactly warm to newcomers. But I'd been drawn to this place like a moth to flame, chasing a story that whispered to me from a newspaper clipping I found months ago. The article, smudged and yellowed, described strange lights and disappearances near Dunlow's seaside cliffs. It hinted at something ancient in the water, something the townsfolk kept to themselves. I couldn't resist the call. After all, I was just a nobody in a city that had forgotten me, and the pull of something unknown, something incomprehensible, was irresistible. I told myself it would be another ghost story, some grim little legend I could turn into a blog post. But now that I was here, I realized Dunlow had secrets that ran far deeper than I'd imagined. Tonight, I found one of those secrets. It was sometime after midnight when the door to my apartment rattled, the sound sharp and unexpected. I thought it might be the landlady coming to scold me for tracking mud through the halls, or perhaps one of the local drunks, who had no love for strangers. But when I opened the door, nobody was there, just the dark, yawning hall and the steady drip of water echoing from the stairwell. My nerves were already frayed, so I was ready to bolt the door and ignore the incident. But then I saw it, a note, carefully folded and resting on the floor just outside my door. I picked it up, hesitant, my fingers trembling. There was something oily and strange about the paper, and as I unfolded it, I could see that the handwriting was jagged, almost frantic. The words scrawled across the page read, "The sea is calling. Follow the lights. Midnight, the old wharf." I swallowed, a heavy feeling settling into my gut. I knew I should crumple the note, toss it away and lock myself in for the night. But the pull was too strong, that insatiable urge to uncover the truth too powerful. So, with only a flashlight and my jacket, I left my apartment, winding through the slick, cobbled streets toward the wharf. The old wharf was abandoned, its wooden boards slick and treacherous, slick with the rain and years of decay. Waves crashed against the rocks below, and the cold ocean mist clung to the air, wrapping around me like damp fingers. I could barely make out anything beyond a few feet in front of me, but as I reached the end of the pier, I saw it. A light. Faint and pulsing, somewhere out over the water, bobbing and flickering as if in rhythm with some unseen tide. My pulse quickened. I had seen similar lights described in the article, but none of it could have prepared me for the sight in front of me now. It was wrong. There's no other way to describe it. The color wasn't something you'd see in nature, a sickly green, laced with hues of deep violet and murky gray, swirling and shifting like it was alive. It made my stomach twist just looking at it, but I couldn't turn away. "Come closer." The voice was barely a whisper, carried by the wind or maybe the waves, I couldn't tell. I scanned the darkness, but no one was there. Just the light, hanging in the distance, bobbing like it was waiting for me to follow. I don't know why I did it. Maybe it was the thrill, or maybe the compulsion to know was already taking hold of me, pulling me out like a line cast to reel in a helpless fish. I slipped out of my shoes, rolled up my pants, and waded into the icy water, the salt stinging my skin as I moved toward the light. It stayed just ahead of me, always out of reach, but close enough to taunt me forward. The further I waded, the darker the water grew, swirling around my legs like thick, black ink. And then, beneath the waves, I saw it, a faint, pulsating glow, mirroring the sickly colors of the light. I squinted, my breath catching as shapes began to emerge, swirling just below the surface. At first, they looked like strange, twisted fish, things that had never seen the light of day. But as they drew nearer, their forms shifted, elongated, growing eyes that were human in shape but vast, emotionless, and unblinking, like glassy marbles reflecting some distant, dead star. They were staring at me, their gaze hollow and consuming, like I was something to be studied, something to be catalogued. One of them surfaced, its head breaking through the water inches from me. Its skin was pale, almost translucent, with veins running beneath it like rivers of shadow. A wide, lipless mouth gaped open, and it whispered a word that chilled me to the core. Home. I stumbled back, gasping as the water surged around me, pulling me down with an unnatural strength. The shapes below the surface multiplied, writhing and twisting together in patterns that hurt to look at, patterns that seemed to fold and unfold in impossible ways, as though they belonged to something that defied the very nature of reality. I tried to pull myself free, but the water was thick, viscous, clinging to my skin like tar, dragging me deeper. Join us, the voices whispered, layering over each other in a maddening chorus that reverberated through my skull. We have waited so long. My mind felt like it was splintering, cracking under the weight of something vast, something that pressed against my very soul with a weight that was beyond human understanding. I could feel it. No, I could sense it. A presence, older than time itself, watching me, studying me with a cold, inhuman interest. It wasn't malevolent, nor was it kind, it was simply beyond. In a final, desperate burst of strength, I managed to claw my way back toward the shore, the water releasing me with a grudging reluctance. I collapsed onto the wet sand, my body shaking, my mind spinning with fragments of impossible visions, patterns, colors that had no name, sounds that resonated deep within me like the tolling of some ancient, otherworldly bell. I should have run. I should have left Dunlow right then, abandoned the search for answers. But that compulsion, that maddening need to understand, wouldn't let me go. The next night, I returned to the wharf. This time, I didn't wait for the lights to call to me. I went to the edge, and I whispered into the darkness, words that felt like they were being fed to me, drawn from some part of me I hadn't known existed. I am here. I am listening. The ocean was silent. Then, slowly, the light reappeared, closer this time, pulsing with that sickly, unnatural hue. And this time, I knew what it was. It wasn't a lantern, wasn't a reflection of anything above. It was an eye. And it was looking right at me. The realization hit me like a blow, my mind struggling to comprehend the vastness of what I was seeing. It wasn't just an eye, it was part of something larger, something ancient and sprawling, lurking beneath the waves, hidden just beyond the veil of our reality. I could feel it watching me, not with curiosity, but with a kind of recognition. You are one of us, the voice murmured, though it was not in my ears but in my mind, as if it had burrowed into my thoughts, planting itself there like a parasite. No, I whispered, shaking my head, my voice barely audible over the pounding of the waves. I'm human. The eye blinked, the light flickering as it did, and the ground beneath me seemed to tilt, to shift as the world around me stretched and distorted. I was on my knees, staring into the water, and I saw myself reflected there, but it wasn't my face. It was something twisted, something that bore the faintest resemblance to me, but with skin as pale as death, eyes that were black and fathomless, a mouth stretched into a horrid, lipless grin. I screamed, stumbling back, but the reflection didn't move. It just watched me, that terrible grin growing wider, as the voice in my mind murmured, "Welcome home." I don't remember getting back to my apartment. I don't remember falling asleep. All I know is that every night since, I've seen that reflection staring back at me, not just in mirrors, but in every dark corner, in every shadow, waiting. I fear the thing in the water called me, marked me. And now it's waiting for the day I lose the last bit of my humanity, and go to it willingly.